And now, right to your hosts of Down the Garden Path, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing.
Hello and welcome to Down the Garden Path and our 9th season of Down the Garden Path. Odd sound there. Where each week we discuss down-to-earth tips and advice while doing our best to help you seasonally manage your garden and landscape. I'm Joanne Shaw, owner of Down to Earth Landscape Design, and with me is my co-host and co-author, Matthew Dressing. Hello, Matt.
Hello, Joanne, and hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Matthew Dressing, owner of Natural Affinity Garden Design. As landscape designers and gardeners, we believe it's important and possible to have great gardens, which are sustainable and low maintenance. And we want to help you make it happen.
That's right. And if you're not lucky enough to be living somewhere tropical, midwinter has you in its grasp, and you might be wondering what you can be doing in your garden. Although there's not much to do outside, there are several activities you can work on inside to get ready for a new growing season. So, what activities are you working on right now? Or what are you looking forward to this garden growing season? Write us at downthegardenpathpodcast@hotmail.com.
That's right. So if you have tuned in or you're a long-time listener, we're bringing back by somewhat popular demand by the numbers, our In the Garden series. So tonight we're kicking it off with February in the Garden. So everything that we can be doing now to plan and get ready for the upcoming season. Because like Joanne said, as long as there's not much we're doing outside, there's lots that we can start and get ready for inside. So we'll go through our February in the garden. It's actually the first time we've ever done February in the garden.
Yeah.
That's right.
And surprisingly, there are several things that we can start doing. So it's kind of good that we're adding it, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah. So I know it's at the bottom of our list, but I think, I wonder if anybody has Christmas plants. Right? That's like, as far as not necessarily in preparation for the growing season, but I know I've got a poinsettia, I've got some amaryllis bulbs that are all at various stages of blooming and finished blooming. How about you?
Yeah, same. Not that it's at the bottom of our list because it's the least important.
No.
But yeah, maintaining those Christmas plants. It's now February, or about to be February. And ours are all still going strong. I have a couple let's be technical, Thanksgiving cactus that are growing nicely, that are nice and flowering. So it's nice to kind of keep them growing, making sure they're not out in full sun. I've got a few new flower buds coming. So we want to make sure that we're maintaining and caring for all of our different Christmas plants. So yeah, I've got a couple Thanksgiving cactus for me that bloom around this year. I've also got one of the new poinsettias, and I'm going to totally forget what the name is because I probably took the tag off, but it's one of the new yellow flowering or gold flowering poinsettias.
Really?
Yeah, it was a brand new, I think this year to the retail, and I think it hit the market or the greenhouse growers a couple of years ago. But yeah, it's a beautiful, rich gold color, which is kind of unusual. And my Thanksgiving cactus are the same thing. I love the Samba series or the nice rich gold with a little bit of peach on them. So even though it is long past their time, remember they're still plants. If you have them, we want to keep them evenly watered, depending on who you've got. We don't want them to dry out. Don't forget your Christmas and Thanksgiving cacti are forest cactuses. They're not desert cactuses. So they are native to South America, and they like that tropical, moist, evenly moist compost and that partial to full shade. So a bright indirect light doesn't need to be in the window to keep them growing, or else they start to turn purple and get heat stressed and dry out, and they don't really perform as nicely. Your poinsettias as well. Poinsettias are a plant that are going to take a break. they are going to have a winter dormancy period in between growths. They need a break out in the garden. So don't be too scared if yours loses a bunch of leaves just down to the bracts, or it seems to really not be doing anything, slows its watering. That is it's taking its winter break, or its lower cool season or lower light season here in
Right.
our area. It's break right now, or as Christmas hits, that's when they're blooming out in that spring to mid-spring, out in people's front yards, up the mountains, in South America. So for us, we've still got to wait
Mhm.
a little bit of time. But yeah, so don't forget to just take care of those extra little plants. If you've got, for example, your amaryllis, yours might just be flowering because maybe we planted it a little late. You like to
Mhm.
plant it or put it in soil, usually around the beginning of November, November 1st to November 10th or 12th, to get her to bloom, or right around Christmas. But if they're blooming, yeah, Joanne is showing me a picture of hers in there in a white pot, and she's just coming up what it looks like about 4 or 5 inches there. Yeah,
Mhm.
so they'll still do their thing. Make sure you keep them evenly watered, give them enough light, let them kind of be active again and get growing for sure. If they've already spent their flowers, remember you can keep them inside. The amaryllis don't need a dormancy period like the poinsettias. So what you can do is just cut the flowers off and then treat
Okay.
the foliage like an indoor house plant, and they're going to prefer somewhat of a partial shade to a very bright indirect light. So you don't
Okay.
have to put them out in the sun. You can put them out part sun out in the summer or in the spring once we get 16 or 18 degrees during the day and night, and let it grow on and fatten up that way as well, and get some good food to build a flower for next year.
Okay. But do you have, because I want to give a shout out to Gloria. So she requested that we chatted a little bit about amaryllis on the show. So hope you're listening, Gloria. So do they need to go outside, Matt, or can we keep them, like, go transition them from the window, and then you said they don't need a dormancy, but don't we put them in a, like, a cooler, darker place, or no?
You can, yeah, you can have them slow down, or if you would like them to not be as actively growing, they can just kind of stay evergreen. I know I've had them in the past where mine have shut down, and I think
Mm,
that's more just environmental. I had it in too low of a light,
okay.
and she just kind of said, "Okay, I'm good for a while." Walked away for a couple months, went to sleep, and then I just increased the light again around November, took her out
Yeah.
of that cooler, darker spot, and popped out again. So yeah, you
Okay.
can have them go dormant and they'll come back up again. But if they don't they don't necessarily need it to make sure that they flower or continue.
Oh,
They
okay.
just want to make
Okay.
sure that they get enough food and light during the in-between season so that
Right.
they can
Right.
stitch next year's bulb. Yeah, or next
Okay.
year's flower.
Yeah. Should we
Flowers.
fertilize them? I know I had a friend who said she puts she's had lots of success re-blooming hers, and she used worm castings.
Yeah, worm castings are amazing. Worms basically eat silver and poop out pure gold and diamonds
Yeah.
and all the nutrient dense stuff. Um, yeah, you can definitely give them a nice light feed. I like to use some organic things, some kelp based fertilizers, or the
Okay.
classic musky fertilizer. But when they're fattening up or they're in that vegetative state, just making sure they do get a little bit of that phosphorus in there. If you're using a synthetic, and make sure you have some phosphorus in your organics, which usually you do, because that's usually what they'll use, that and some potassium to really
Okay.
start building that flower. Yeah,
Okay. So make sure you have the three, something in all three numbers, like 20 20 20 or 15 15 15.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yep, exactly.
Okay.
I also like to use the organic based Nutrite. So it's a little bit more of, it looks like a synthetic prill, but it is organic based. So as a prill, I just mean like the granular
Oh, okay.
kind of stuff. Yeah, and it's like a 6, I think it's 6, 9, 12. So it really kind of boosts the resistances, gives them some fatness and gives them some phosphorus, but gives them a little bit of nitrogen as well to keep
Okay.
growing. Yeah.
Yeah, because they definitely take a while. So the one I just showed you, and you're right, it's about 5 inches. But I brought that out. That was the ones I found. Remember, I said I'm sure I saved them, and I just couldn't
Oh
find
yeah.
which cupboard I put them in. Isn't that sad? But anyway, and so it's been out since before Christmas, but it just has sat there. It has not done anything, and then poof, it's like then that's a cool thing about amaryllis, is like it doesn't seem like they're doing anything, and then I feel like they grow right as you're watching it. Like it just
Oh yeah.
it's I'm sure it was shorter this morning compared to how it is now, so it is quite incredible how tall they can get. and how quickly they can fill out. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I've got a couple that have finished flowering, and I've cut off the bloom, and I'm hoping to get a second bloom. So we'll wait and see. So yeah, so they are easy-ish to save for the following year. And if you do have room in your garden and you want to put them in the garden, right, in partial shade, um, I think it's just easier to keep them inside for me personally.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah,
So
they're
I'd love to
beautiful,
hear.
beautiful long strap, like dark green foliage. So they're very neat and they have a nice texture and they would be nice against or with a grouping of other plants for sure to keep inside all
Mhm.
year round. Yeah.
Yeah,
So what else
yeah.
are we doing? Have you started growing or purchasing any seeds yet?
I have not. It is on my list. I do have some leftover from last year. I know I spoke a bit about it on the show last week about wanting to do some winter sowing with my onion seeds, and I have not had time to do that yet. But it is. I was determined I was going to do it before we started our show tonight at 7, but I didn't get there. I didn't get there. Things ran late today, so yeah, so I did not get there. But yeah, so how about you? Have you started anything?
I haven't sown anything just yet, but I've been gathering my seeds from last year. I
Okay.
wanted to start out some of my Ecuadorian striped peanuts again. I didn't grow any last year, but I still have some peanuts that are viable this year. So I want to make sure that I can get some of those in the ground because my supplier doesn't carry them anymore. So I need to make some
Oh.
more for myself. And then I did. Or I ordered some micro dwarf tomatoes and some cherry tomatoes last night actually,
Oh,
and
okay.
yeah, and I actually have some things arriving later or during the show probably, um,
Ooh,
ready to go. So
very
yeah, so
cool.
lots of different things. I'm going to start really looking at growing indoors and some more of that food sustainability, like Ashley Thomas.
Hmm.
We were talking before the Christmas break, how easy it is to kind of just start to take little bits of control of that food security. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
looking to be a lot more veggies than flowers this year and see what I can grow. Yeah. How
Okay.
about you? Do you have any plans specifically for what you're going to
No,
grow or?
yeah, not yet. You know what? I did get some great cherry tomato seeds from Julia DeMacos last year, and the
Yes.
yellow, I forget what they were called, but they were golden and they were pear shaped and they were amazing. Um,
Oh,
but I really think I want, and again, I'm going to get this wrong, but I don't, I think the dwarf, what you were talking about, because I spent so much effort having to control the size and to keep staking them, right?
yeah.
And I don't have the best amount of space for that. So I think I really want to find some of the smaller varieties that I can go back to in a pot, or even if they're in the ground, but they won't require so much staking. So yeah, so that's what I want to look for. Because
So some
yeah, what would
some
they be called?
determinate varieties.
Determinate. Yeah,
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 some determinate varieties. Yeah, the indeterminate ones are the ones that just keep flowering and growing and
hmm,
flowering and growing. And then your determinate get to a certain size, bloom and fruit all at once. So there's a
yeah,
determined set kind of thing. Yeah, and so for those of you who don't know, the micro dwarfs are determinate or semi-determinate, and they will grow in a 6 inch or a 1 gallon nursery container or just a 6 inch pot. They usually will only grow from 8 or 9 inches or 12 inches tall and wide. So they're perfect for a little patio or, 2 or 3 in a window box or just somewhere in a little spot in the garden to tuck in.
yeah,
And they are beautiful little cherries that produce all season or different points in the season. Yeah. So
yeah.
I have some of those growing.
So do they, you say that they all bloom or they provide fruit all at once, but then do they do it again? Like, is there a second flush like rose bushes or
No, yeah, the
no?
determinants will just kind of do it and then stop. Yeah. So
Ah,
you
that
could
is the
grow.
dilemma, right? That is the dilemma then. I guess is that why people like the indeterminate because they keep getting it?
That's why I like it because I can just have an 8 foot cherry that grows 8 foot and just right at about
Yeah.
2 feet, just drop me tomatoes all season long. Yeah. If you wanted to do the micros, you could just stagger your seeding time, right? Because it'll
Hmm.
take X days to get to
Yeah.
determination. So if you staged it out, maybe did 4 plantings, one every week, you could have a certain period over 4 weeks where you get those favorite determinate tomatoes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I mean, so I may still do one, but I'm sure I'm gonna have baby plants come up just from the garden. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Some of the seeds that made it over winter. For sure, for
Hmm.
sure.
Hmm.
So now, if you haven't started yet, now is a great time to start looking for seeds in your local garden centers, your independent garden centers. I've even seen some of the grocery stores near me start to carry some of the classic independent garden center seed lines. So things like Fothergill's, Mackenzie's, Ontario Seed Company, they're all starting to show up as well. So take a look for some local seeds. If you haven't already, maybe you already have received some, but don't forget your seed catalogs as
Hmm.
well to take
Yeah.
a look. And if I can take a moment to plug my favorite seed catalog,
Ooh, what is your favorite seed
yeah,
catalog?
look
Ooh, it's
how
a thick one. Oh my gosh, that's really thick.
it is an inch thick. It is, let me just take a look here, 500 and at least 26 pages long. And it is by Baker Creek Seeds, the whole seed catalog from
Oh,
2023. So you can
wow.
still order this, rareseeds.com. Shout out to them. But they carry lots of heirloom flowers and vegetables from all over the world. So you can get everything from radishes and quinoa to unique peppers and basils and
Oh,
coleus.
neat.
It's fabulous. Every year there's just too many more seeds to be
So,
buying.
yeah,
So
so
the
where
whole
are they based? Where are they based?
they are, I believe, and I might say this wrong, but I believe they are in Missouri.
Okay.
I'm sorry, my listeners from the United States, MO is the state abbreviation. Is that
Missouri. Yeah.
is that Missouri? Okay, I thought it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's Bakersfield, Missouri is technically
Okay.
where they are. Baker
Mhm.
or Mansfield, Missouri. So take a
Yes.
look at them, rareseeds.com. You can order online. They do ship to Canada, obviously. And they have some beautiful, beautiful, rare, interesting material to take a look for.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah,
I shout out too to the local. So we're depending whether you are in the US or Canada, there's often like local smaller people that seed companies that are just getting going and that type of thing. So those are also really good ones to support. Even Julia, she
I
saves
was
her
just going to
seeds.
say,
Yeah. And so you can check out if you haven't seen some of our many shows with Julia DeMacos, the gardening girl. She has a shop on her website, and she see and which is kind of cool because she grows those. She's saving the seeds from the best of what she grows, and that's probably the case with all the small seed companies. So that's sometimes nice. I know there's a lot of big companies, and but sometimes it's nice to just find somebody local, right?
I agree. And as you say that, I also think of Emma Biggs,
Yeah.
right? Food Garden Life podcast or show. She has grown over 200 varieties of tomatoes. And like Julia, she'll often offer up her seeds of the best that she has for sale as well. So emmabiggs.ca is her website there. I don't think she's selling them just yet. I think it was on there last Thursday or Friday. So I think her 2022 seeds are just about to become available. But
Okay.
she's in Toronto as well. So yeah, check out the local guy. Check out your local growers, your food farmers, or just those independent people as well. Speaking of some individuals, we have quite a few questions that we are
Ah.
popping in. We have Frank who's written in as well, or to kick it off with a little congrats. Hello, Joanne and Matt. Wow. Did you say 9 years or eight? I've been listening to you for that long. Congrats. So thank you, Frank. Joanne did say nine. It is
Yes.
our ninth season, 9 seasons, episode 2. Exactly. We also have Brian who's written in about pumpkins. I want to grow that great pumpkin this year for my kids. Too early to start the seeds indoors. Thank you. P.S. If I do, what is the best way to transplant outdoors and when would be a good time? I live here in Toronto. Thank you very much for your answer. Yeah. Usually I see them starting to be planted in about March, mid-March, indoors. You can start them earlier as well, just to kind of get to that pumpkin phase, but then you have to deal with a larger plant indoors, which can become somewhat unruly.
Mm-hmm.
I would take a look, though, Brian, at the exact great pumpkin, as you have in quotes. I think of Charlie Brown, that great pumpkin. We'll see which variety you want to take or grow specifically. And on the seed package, they'll have that specific date or number of weeks indoors to start before putting it outside. And that's the optimal time
Mm-hmm.
as well. But if just a quick recall off the top of my head, it is mid March. And then again, planting outdoors, yeah, just like you would transplant or plant any other annual perennial tree or shrub, planting it just as deep as the uh, pot is wide, just twice as wide, give it some good soil. If you're planting into the veggie garden, you've probably already prepared the soil, etc. And then I know that the melons and the pumpkins or the gourds, they like a little bit of a hill to roll down. So they'll benefit if you have a little bit of a mound where you plant it. And you don't need it like a huge drop, but just like a nice slight grade of a couple percent out to the edges, and they'll enjoy that as well. So yeah,
Okay.
making sure that it's transplant time. You don't want to have any frost here in Toronto. So for us, it's the May 2-4 weekend or around June 1st, depending on how the spring comes in for us. And then you're probably good to go. Just
Mm-hmm.
watch as well, and we can maybe talk about it as we get closer for that powdery mildew on those leaves. So make sure
Okay.
you're watering just the base. Remember where you put that in there, Brian, and we'll keep her nice and healthy for
That's
sure.
right. That's right. We do want, I do want to say that you think it's, if you're super keen and you want to like plant earlier than what the seed package says, it's not like I would say for someone who's tried it and done it, and I'm certainly still learning at growing by seed myself, but that makes it trickier because, like Matt said, you're dealing with a bigger plant and controlling whether it gets leggy, whether it gets mildew because it's now too big, and before you can start hardening it off outside. So really, they do know what they're talking about when they say when to do it. Now, I know some plants like tomatoes that you can, if it's gotten leggy, then you can plant it. Some people like that because then they plant them much deeper, right? So they're stronger and things like that. But for the most part, don't be too excited because and every year on those Facebook groups, I see people who've started their tomato seeds in January, which was really early, or
Yeah,
February, really, really early, and then they all die before they get them outside. So I do want to say I speak from experience that, earlier isn't necessarily better unless you're really set up to deal with all of the potential things that could go wrong. So I do really suggest that you and even I think starting later is probably easier, right? Because then as soon as they're ready to go outside, you can put them outside. You don't even have to worry about hardening. So, or you
yeah,
may not, depending. So yeah, so that's just my tip is really try to stick as close to um the time on the package
yeah,
as possible.
exactly. They, like you said, they've tested it forever and they know really that best
Yeah.
time to get it
Hmm.
out for sure, for sure.
Yeah. And like we said, there's seeds that you can start this early, like onions and lavender. There's some ones that have that longer season, and that's great. But so that's the important part. So things like pumpkin, because they get going pretty quick once they get going, even
Yeah,
though, it needs a lot outside. So yeah, so we often get we keep saying we need to do a whole show on just pumpkins because we often get a lot of questions about we just haven't found anybody who's a pumpkin expert. So if you know somebody, we would love to talk to them
yes,
about
please.
growing pumpkins because it is a popular topic for sure. Whether you're growing like the little cool white ones or whether you are trying to grow a giant one, I think it's cool too. We'd love to speak to somebody.
Yeah, exactly. They're just so much fun, like Brian said, for the kids. And there's so many great. I love pumpkins for sure. I fresh pumpkins every year for pumpkin everything baked.
I know. I know. You just need the space, right? And so neither you or I have the
No,
space to be able to do it. So that's the challenge, right?
that's right.
So yeah. Unless we just like randomly go to a friend's house and say, "Can we just try growing this?" And and then it eats their yard.
That's right. My sister's got some. some space at her place out east,
Oh
and by like Belleville, Kingston area. Maybe I'll rent a bed from her. I
yeah.
just plant there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I did have luck with the melon. So there's a small, I think it's Sugar Baby that Julia recommended. And
Oh,
I grew it. So even though I don't have a ton of space, it is a small melon. So it would be like an equivalent of a small pumpkin. But
yeah,
I did plant it. We did grow it. My son and I, we did grow it up a chain. So it did climb the chain and then it was hanging there. And we did create a little hammock as it got bigger and stuff like that. So I'm not sure if I can't see why you couldn't do that with a pumpkin, but I think you would need like a lot of chains. That's all, because I
yeah.
think it was a little bit more vigorous. And probably only if you're doing a smaller pumpkin, like some of the smaller decorative ones. So yeah, so
Yeah.
that would be fun to try. So yeah, so you've not missed. So even though we started talking about starting seeds, you have not missed the boat.
Nope.
You've got the whole month of February and March and even April. It really just depends on what you want to grow. So, like Matt said, is now's the time to look at your seed catalogs, to think about what you planted last year, what worked, what didn't work, or reading up on what other people were really successful with and what they're recommending. Yeah.
Agreed. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
somewhere nice where it's North Carolina, for example,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and
Like
it's
Ashley.
80
Yeah.
degrees, exactly, Ashley's garden must be already well underway. We're very jealous of you down there buying perennials and fruiting plants and getting everything already going. So most certainly. As we approach the very end, I'm going to go a minute early here before we jump into our next topic. But thank you just everybody for joining us here on Reality Radio 101. I'm Matthew Dressing here with my co host and co author, Joanne Shaw, and you're listening to Down the Garden Path. Joanne and I enjoy hosting Down the Garden Path each week, bringing you interesting and relevant topics to help you achieve a great garden. We learn right along with you from our research and from the guests that join us here on the show. So don't forget you can spend more time with us down the garden path. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Down the Garden Path Podcast is our handle there. And don't forget you can find all on your favorite podcast providers lots of past episodes packed with information. And while you're there, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to be notified of new content. And please don't forget to like, share, and leave us a comment. We love hearing from you. And you can always write us at Down the Garden Path podcast at hotmail.com. But yeah, don't forget to continue the conversation with us. If you have pictures or other ideas, join our Facebook group and we can continue the discussion there. And we're on there regularly and sharing photos, and you can share photos and we can catch up with you there. Don't forget as
Mm-hmm.
well, you can find Joanne at www.down2earth.ca, myself at naturalaffinity.ca. So we have these seeds that we are growing and that we are starting, but we might need something else, something like some grow lights uh,
Ah.
indoors as well to get our seeds germinating and growing, or just keep them active and keep our house plants going. So don't forget you can start setting up some grow lights if you already haven't. That's the thing that I have. I think it made it sound like I had seeds coming tonight. I think they're actually coming tomorrow. I have more grow lights still arriving from
Ooh.
Amazon this evening that I'm looking forward to set up some things. So yeah, so set up those grow lights. Make sure that you've got a nice full spectrum, or if you need a little bit of extra UV or infrared light, that's what I have coming. I need a little bit more blue and red to make sure that my plants have those coloring a little bit for some of that germination to get some of my seeds growing. So don't forget you can start setting up your grow lights. And it doesn't have to be a big, elaborate greenhouse level system as well. There are lots
Mm-hmm.
of portable, smaller individual pot lights, very small bars that are very plug and play that will zip tie or attach to different things or under shelves. So there's lots of different ways that you can have your grow lights basically for starting seeds. Or if maybe you have, for example, a basement apartment or a dark area of the house that you want to add a little bit more light to, you can do something as easy as change your light bulb on your lamp fixture into something that is full spectrum to give you the reds, the blues, and some more white, kind of mimic that sunlight as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
And then there's also some of the systems, if you don't want anything that elaborate, but you want something that you can use, all year long, is there's some of the more hydroponic systems, like the little click and grow or the arrow garden, right?
Yeah.
You can probably three plants. They're great for herbs. It's a really good way to grow herbs or some lettuce. And you buy the seeds, that come in the pot already, and the pot fits in the hole. So it's kind of like a complete little kit. And they don't take up a lot of space, and you set the timer so it comes with the light built in. So it gives you that little container. I'd love to hear from a listener who has one that they love. I'm trying to figure out which one we have. And I think it is the Smart Garden that we have. Like the light is on a wand, and it gets to, like right now when they're just starting out. My son started a few months ago, a few weeks ago actually. And so the light is really close, and then as they get bigger, you kind of raise the light a little bit. And the lights can be on a timer as well. So we've got it, set so it is on a timer. So they're a handy little thing, and you can do that year round.
That's right. Yeah, I think it's the Arrow Garden too. So it's just a little
Okay.
pod. It, like Joanne said, there's just three little spots for some hydroponic um, grow plugs there, and it has a little bit of a bubbler in there to get some oxygen into the water, but it takes up a footprint of a square foot.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful light, it's adjustable, and I can have greens or veggies or whatever I want really growing
Hmm.
all year round. I'm waiting for some of my micro dwarf tomatoes. I'm going to try putting,
Are you?
yeah,
Okay.
because it'll be for the variety I got is only about 9 inches. So
Okay.
that's just underneath by about 3 inches the height. So I'm going to try that. But yeah, I have, I think, some different just spring green mixes in mind, some muscadine greens that I just cut
Okay.
off for whatever. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
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 Easy, nice little footprint. Great for things like that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean, certainly you can do a bigger setup, but I just want everybody to know that you can, if you are in an apartment, like you said, you can do a smaller thing like those kits.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. The other thing you could be doing too, or continuing to do if you haven't jumped in there, keeping food fresh, especially under today's crazy prices of food and all that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
is growing some sprouts from
Oh,
salad.
right.
Yeah, they're super easy. I just have a little kind of jar. You can usually get little kits with mason jars, and you can get different peas and mung beans and different beans and things like that. And you basically keep them moist, keep them out of full sun. You don't need them to have light, and they're just going to sprout. They will sprout over 3 to 4 days, depending on which one you've got. And you've always got a nice little thing of fresh sprouts to add to a salad or into a stir fry or some rice or
Yeah.
something like that. Really easy to do. You just kind of water them, swish them around, empty them out. They absorb that water, and you keep growing things fresh. And they're nice and nutrient dense too, much like
That's
microgreens, right?
true.
They're so
Hmm.
really packed still with all that food they're looking to use to grow the plant. So a great, another little easy to do. I have a little jar that is maybe 4 by 4 inches. It takes up
Hmm.
no room, and I have fresh food every day or some
Oh,
fresh
that's
stuff
cool.
every day. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's great. It's something that you can do in January, February, like we're talking about. It'd be cool for kids too, something like sunflower seeds, because those make great sprouts and they're quite tasty. And so for the kids that are familiar with sunflower seeds, and then for them to have that experience and that like responsibility of adding the water and then rinsing them out. Usually the lid has like a strainer, right? So you fill it with water and
Yeah.
then you strain it out, and then just the moisture that stays with the seeds. So it's something like you would do that for like 5 days in a row, and then they start to sprout. So I think it's a handy thing for anybody of any age. But I always like,
Definitely.
just like amaryllis, I would think they just make such a great gift for children to watch them grow. And same with children to grow seeds or sprouts, to have them see what happens and that they can eat that. And I think that's a really great thing. But it also, if you're dying, missing being outside, it's just one little thing that you can do fairly inexpensively. And again, it's food, because to buy those sprouts, right? You go
Oh
to
yeah.
any of the organic grocery stores or vegetable places that carry them, they are quite expensive. So, for a mason jar and the price of that lid, it's a piece of cake,
Yeah, it's
really.
a like $10 or less startup. And then the
Yeah.
seeds, including some seeds, like you're
Um,
off. Yeah, for those little kits, for sure. Well, if we needed to maybe get out of our house during our time in our February, we can always visit our local garden centers and greenhouses to get a small hit of some plants. But there's a lot of other things and activities that are heading out, or activities that are out and about that you can head out. For example, you could always hit up your local garden club, attend something like a
mhm.
local Seedy Saturday. Garden clubs are also filled with enthusiasts that, like Julia and Emma and ourselves, are saving seeds and always planting and growing and sharing new things. So you can always visit some of your, or sign up for a local garden club. If there's none in your area, there are a lot of resources that are out there. I think on the show on the past, we've mentioned places like Landscape Ontario, or the Canadian Nursery Landscape Association. Not only do they have links to these clubs and other places and events going on, but they've also got a lot of their own courses and other information happening too. So you could get out and take a gardening course, or a plant ID course, or a financial course. There's lots of different landscape resources for sure.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, I can give a shout out to if you're in Ontario, you can check out the website gardenontario.org.
mhm,
And that will list all like there's so many communities that have a garden club and you may not know it. So most of them will have meetings in the winter, some may not. But like Matt said, they might have other activities like a Seedy Saturday. I know my Pickering Garden Club does have meetings. We're actually meeting virtually in January, February, and March, more for the weather, not really for
yeah,
COVID, but more for the weather because we've had so many times in the past where we've got a really good speaker and then it snows or there's a threat of snow or a threat of ice and and six people show up for the poor speaker. So we
oh,
decided to keep it virtual since everybody's gotten used to that now. So some of the clubs might be doing that as well. So yeah, so lots going on and lots to learn from speakers that and meet new other gardeners also at so shout out to the garden clubs. I know even in the US they're all and even all the small communities. If you don't think you have one, you probably do. So yeah. So
yes,
shout out to and for like $20 like membership and what you get a discount on at the local nurseries. It's a no-brainer because normally to see some of the speakers it'd be $20 per speaker. So you're getting to see
yes.
8 or 9 speakers for the year for a nominal, $15 to $20 membership. So it's definitely worth it to check it out.
That's right. One of the things that I can think, or I always think of about this time of year, is the Toronto Botanic Gardens Orchid Show and
Mm.
sale coming up on, I think it's February 11th
And
and
12th.
12th. That's right, the
Yes.
Saturday and the Sunday. So general admission $10, but I mean these kind of events, they go all out. The orchid display room is absolutely stunning and absolutely inspiring. Go, it's a nice day for a quick walk, and then you can buy a lot of the stuff that is there as well, or a lot of the products, and some starter plants as well.
But unusual varieties too. So I think,
Yeah,
the ones, oh no, the names has gone right out of my head. The ones that
like the
are
phalaenopsis.
the phalaenopsis is ones we see everywhere.
Yes.
But the orchid show, it gives you an opportunity. I attended a few years ago and really get some new and unique ones. And you can speak to the grower and find out information on the best care right there because they know these are their babies, right? They know what they're talking about. So it's really a really unique experience and it is a great day. And it's 2 days. And so, yeah, definitely, if you're in the Toronto area, definitely highly recommend the Orchid Show. And we did a show, right? We interviewed
Yeah,
one of the coordinators several years ago. So you can find that on, if you want to know more details, you can find that on our past show list.
That's right. And we'll throw it in the show notes as well for a
Mm,
quick link on your
okay.
favorite podcast providers. Yeah, go. It's a great day. Take a look, walk around. They love sharing all of that information as well with you. What else might we be doing in our February garden?
Mm.
Oh,
Well,
what were we going to say?
I'm going to say so in addition to the garden clubs, but there's also lots of opportunity for um, gardening courses. Like you mentioned, Landscape
Oh, yeah.
Ontario offers some gardening courses. The Great Grow Along, I was just going to
Oh,
look for
yes.
that, is also, if you Google
The
Great
great.
Grow Along. Yep, is a virtual garden festival and it's free. It's a free 10-day,
Cool.
March 10th to 19th. So you can register and then yeah, so that is a really cool program that has been going on for the last couple of years and they're still holding it again. So it's a great way to hear a lot of speakers. But if there's something you want to learn more about, like this one's free. Some of the I know Landscape Ontario did some like lunch and learns, which were, nominal fee to attend. But if you wanted to learn something like more on native plants or more on growing fruit, something a little bit more specific. And the cool thing is so many courses are virtual now. So you can take a course with the New York Botanical Gardens and, or with a garden club in California. It doesn't matter where you are, you can gain your knowledge and learn right in the comfort of your own home.
That's right. So, do you know who or what is kind of what are we going to learn at this year's Great Grow Along? Like what kind of speakers or
Okay.
where
Yeah.
when it is?
It is well, it's the 10th to the 19th of March. It looks like small space Saturday, so big tips for tiny spaces from balconies to beds on Saturday. They are going to look at good morning garden tours. So grab a hot cup of tea and greet the day while enjoying inspirational look at public and botanic gardens across the US and Canada. Thanks to our partners at the American Public Garden Association for showcasing these beautiful spaces. So yeah, and then our friends at Garden Gate Magazine, they have connected with Ryan McKechnie from First Edition Shrubs and Trees. Are taking us through beautiful home garden each morning of the Grow Along. So lots of really good things. Ashley's going to be there. She's Fundamentals of Small Space Gardening. Ashley Thomas, who we had on in the fall, and Lose the Lawn, Grow Food Instead.
Ooh,
Let's see, trellising tips and tricks. Tiny and wild, build a small scale meadow. Veggies for small spaces. So how's that? There's lots going on. So I'm looking forward to that. And I believe when you register, you also then are entitled to the recording. So if you can't, spend a whole week at your computer, then
yeah.
you can refer back to it. But yeah, some really great Carrie from Seed to Spoon, who we're hoping that we're going to have on the show. And yeah, so lots of great tips, even about houseplants. So yeah.
Very nice. So yeah, wide range of interesting, useful topics to get us started and
Mm-hmm.
inspired for the 2023 year, for sure, for sure. If you're also hitting that little bit of spring, we talked about seeds, but maybe one of the other things that we have started or in the fall, we have some bulbs that we might be able to pull out now that we've been forcing in our fridge or our cold
Mm.
cellar, and we can start planting them up or groups of them up to start giving us some nice fall bulb color. I know I have some little white and purple crocuses and a little arrangement that I'm going to do with them, so they're almost ready. They usually take about 10 to 12 weeks in the freezer or the fridge, that little vernalization period, that nice cold snap that they need. And then they'll realize it's spring and start to activate. You can grow them in just a nice little bonsai container or just plant them right on the soil surface of a shallow dish or on the 4-inch pot, or you can plant them traditionally where they're 3 times their height down in the soil and just let them pop up. I like to do it just on the top of a nice bonsai dish, nice and shallow. It's kind of more of a European way, I guess, that they,
Okay.
they will decorate their bulbs. So you can see the bulbs and they'll anchor into some good soil and give you a little bit of a show that way. as well. So you can bring out any of your fall bulbs, start bringing them out and staging and decorating with them. One thing you could decorate them with as well is some of your early spring flowering branches, things like our pussy willow and our
Mhm.
forsythia. If you have any of those, any pussy willow or even just some willows, because they always will get the little fuzzy catkins or little fuzzy flowers or some catkins as well. And then some forsythia. They have all their buds for flower buds set last year for this year. So cutting them and bringing them into a nice little vase will activate their warmth. They'll activate with some warmth, sorry, draw up some water, and those flowers can expand and give you a nice show in just a simple vase. So I have some that's just kind of wild in a space near me. I always just kind of grab a couple sprigs. It doesn't have to be pretty and long and just kind of like a dogwood, right? After you cut it, it just grows a long single stem every
Okay.
year. So you might find some side branches and a little lateral branching, but that tends to be mostly flowers or a number of flowers. So you can get some interesting shapes and different sizes as well to
Okay.
add some interest to your arrangement.
So do we have to wait till they start to form buds, or will even if we cut them now, will they?
Yeah, so much like lilacs, they've already set their
Oh,
buds
right.
last year,
Yes, they
right?
have.
Right, so they're all sitting there dormant. So now that we've had a good
Mm,
snap of cold, they've vernalized again, and they're
okay.
ready just to wait and warm up. So it's a nice to grab a little cut. I've got cut one a couple of days ago, and they're swelling already and showing just a
Oh,
sliver, just the tiniest sliver of color to start to pop through. So yeah,
okay. What did you get? Forsythia or
sorry,
pussy
forsythia.
willow?
I
Okay.
grabbed some forsythia. I did
Yeah.
have some pussy willow last week, but they were just kind of little young stems that I grabbed,
Okay.
so they were a little smaller.
Yeah. They're harder to find, yeah, in the wild, but
They are
the
harder to
forsythia
find in the wild.
can be a little bit or everybody has that neighbor, who's got a big, huge, massive, bush in their yard and they might need some like help pruning it. So
That's right.
that's a great thing to do. Absolutely.
And
So what a great show. My gosh, Matt, February in the garden, there's a lot to do.
there's still a lot to do, right? We haven't even gone on a deep dive of all the tropicals and hydro and aeroponics and all that kind of stuff that you could or couldn't be doing. So
Mhm.
hopefully that'll keep you busy for this cold month if you're up here. Again, if you're further south, we're jealous. We're all itching
We
for that
are.
nice spring weather to coax us outside and show us some green. So lucky
Mhm.
you.
Definitely. And we have our stepping stone segment that was new. So if you're a new listener, you missed us last week in our first show of the season. We of our ninth season. Woohoo! We are introducing a new segment called Stepping Stone segment, and tips to take the next step in your gardening journey. But this episode was all full of tips. So yeah, so do we have anything that else we missed, Matt, that we want to leave our listeners with? And I think we have a few more questions too.
Yeah, definitely. We do have some more questions that we can jump into for sure for our stepping stones. But tips, um, you know what? Just enjoy the gardening. There's lots more to do. There's lots to experiment with. You can be taking cuttings. You can be planning your garden, whether you're looking at growing seeds or you're looking to plan your new garden, your perennials or trees or shrubs. Definitely, there's lots of things to do. Joanne, you were just flashing me the new gardener. Is that the one? Oh, the gardener.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
one
so it's
of
the gardener. This is their fall. I bought it in the fall and I got buried in my office. So oh, you have it
them.
there too.
Which one do you
So
have?
yeah, I have the October fall 2022. So the Gardener
Oh, I missed
magazine
that
for
one.
Canadian climates. So yeah, so now's a good time. Magazines, you know what, everybody, the magazines are having a hard time because you can get so much online now, but to have the information that they give you that is curated and beautiful photographs and it's
Yeah.
portable. You don't have to you can sit in front of the fireplace in the winter and flip through the magazine. You don't have to be at your computer. So a shout out to our friends at all the different gardening magazines. That this is the Gardener. We've had Garden Gate magazine on. Of course, there's Fine Gardening, which is a lovely magazine also. So am I missing another one? I don't
No,
think
I mean,
I can think
those are
of.
the ones I
Yeah.
like for sure. Garden Gate, always the Gardener magazine, great for Canadian climates. And then if you're looking for a little bit more reading, don't forget you can find all of our tips that we talked about today, and then some for your upcoming growing season with our new book just released in last May, Down the Garden Path, a step-by-step to guide to your Ontario garden. So a perfect gift for that loved one in your life. A couple more weeks and we have Valentine's Day.
Mhm.
So maybe you want to show some appreciation for that gardener in your life. You can find it on Amazon.com and or .ca. And if you're looking for an autographed copy, now's the time to do it. Reach out to us so that we can ship it to you. We'd be happy to sign and personalize a book to that special someone in your life as well. So definitely check out our lovely book filled with tips and tricks, low maintenance gardening for every part of your garden, for sure.
Hmm. And we've got a shout out to William. He says he's a cross listener to us and the big show. And he says Emma Big sells seeds too, as we mentioned. So yes, thank you, William, for supporting both of our shows. And Ray, says congratulations on 9 years of broadcasting. Oh, we've learned so much. So thank you, Ray. I know you've been a long listener as well. And Brenda just shared a beautiful picture of her orchids. She's in Hamilton, Ontario, and that's a beautiful picture, isn't it, Matt?
Yeah, beautiful phalaenopsis there. Nice whites and pinks and all multi stems. Absolutely gorgeous, Brenda. Thank you for sharing. Most certainly. We
Yeah.
also had a couple other listener questions. As I go back here after looking at Brenda's there, I think was it Kelly? Yeah, Kelly asked, "Hi Joanne and Matt, is it advisable to add potting soil to my houseplants each year? Is the old soil bad for the plant?" Yeah, you can see as the potting soils are peat based, they will slowly break down and release nutrients to the plant. So you might have to pot it up. Depending on the plant species, if they've been in the same pot for a number of years, it might be time to transplant it up. If it is a larger plant or something that you don't want to move it up, you may just need to do some root pruning. So removing some of the soil, pruning out some of the thicker, older roots, and adding some new soil or something like worm castings into your peat mix or top dressing with some worm casting to add some nice slow release nutrients. And that root pruning will cause all those, some of the bigger roots that you've left behind to break again into fibrous roots and just reinvigorate that root zone as well. So great time to do it for pretty much everybody is in the spring as the days grow longer. They recognize the light is getting more plentiful and they begin active growth again. So yeah,
Hmm.
if it has been pretty old, the bad soil isn't too bad for the plant. It just becomes less fertile and it tends to be more roots than soil. So you don't get to hold as much water. So you might
Hmm.
have to, if you've noticed, Kelly, that your watering is suddenly increased and you're watering it every day now versus, 2 years ago when it was like every 3 or 4 days. Yeah, your roots have taken over and she's ready for a switch for
Mm.
sure.
Yeah. 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 I have a jade that I'm thinking that, oh, actually, it's right here. Yeah, the soil is very hard and dry, even after watering it. So yeah, it might need a little bit. And there's things you can add, right? Like you said, worm castings. Is there anything else we can add, Matt? I was
You,
thinking of the bios that I know we had
yeah,
them on the show.
yeah,
Aaron,
we
like
had
his name went, phew.
Hey, yeah,
Yeah.
Aaron from BIOS. Yeah. So adding the beneficial bacteria back into the soil to keep things well structured, to increase the
Hmm.
organic matter and hold that moisture and feed that plant a little bit more organically for sure. Depending on your plant, yeah, things like worm castings. I know I always add just a really high quality compost into my potting mix. So I'll have some peat, but then I'll add, 25 or 40% of some compost in there. My plants seem to like it indoors. It just adds a little bit of weight to it. But again, it's some nutrient dense plant
Hmm.
material or nutrient dense soil material, adds a little bit of structure, helps with the moisture. The peat moss, if it's a peat based soil, it can become hydrophobic if we forget to water about it. So sometimes it doesn't absorb that water right away. Or organic slowly breaks down and becomes just kind of dusty or not
Right.
as beneficial to the
Nutritious.
plant
Yeah.
anymore. Yeah, nutritious is a good word
Hmm.
for it for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And even compost tea, that's something that if you're, in an apartment and you don't want to make a big mess with or, regardless with the soil and the transplanting and stuff like that, there's something you can order called it looks just like regular tea. You don't want to mix it up with the tea that we drink though,
Yes.
because it's kind of stinky.
Oop.
And compost or manure tea that you basically just soak the tea bag in the water and then you can use that to water your plants with, and gives them some nutrients as well, very organically.
Yeah, I was gonna say just a beautiful organic way of just adding, especially if you have something like your BIOS from Aaron from BIOS. I think it's just bios.com if I'm remembering correctly. Sorry, Aaron. You can order that and add that to your soil as well. I think Joanne's going to quickly look it up for me. Thank you. But yeah, just feeding that organics, or if you've added a little more worm castings or compost to it, just feeding that microbial life to help break down and release those nutrients. So yeah, Kelly, if you need to, definitely take a look at just repotting or adding or top dressing those soil, especially if you can see some of the roots on the top of the soil as well. Did you find Aaron?
It's well, I found him on Instagram, so he is biosnutrients.ca. So BIOS nutrients.ca. So that is his product there. You can learn more about it on our show, but yes, definitely an organic and natural fertilizer. So that's another thing to do.
Yeah, you and I have used it, have we not?
We have, yeah.
I've used it,
yeah. Yep, I have used it. And it did help with I took cuttings of the wrong time of year, but I did take cuttings of my rubber tree plant. I need to take more because it's just gotten unruly. We can't find a place in a room in the house for it anymore. But that is something kind of near the end of February that you might want to be able to do with some of your house plants too, is propagate them. So you can start cutting them and putting them in water to root them. And that's something else that can kind of give your little green thumb a workout. That's right. There's lots to do in February.
Tons and tons to do in February, exactly. So we hope that you enjoyed our February in the Garden, our launch back into our monthly foray into what you should be doing next month, our low maintenance tips and tricks. So at the end of March, or at the end of February, we'll have March in the Garden. But that brings us to the end of another great show. Thank you, everybody, for listening, whether you're listening live or you're listening into the podcast. You're listening to Down the Garden Path here on Reality Radio 101, and we look forward to talking to you next week. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you later.
Bye.
For listening to Down the Garden Path with your hosts Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing right here on Reality Radio 101.